सहगन रघुनाथं वीतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगन ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे थैंक यू सो मच
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So something that we are trying to understand, which the entire world fails to follow. How this creation takes place. This question has puzzled even the great sages and great thinkers. And it is very, very rare that people are able to assimilate how creation takes place. Because unless and until one is connected to the creator, it is impossible to understand the creation. It is so subtle. So yesterday and day before we discussed that how from the subtle elements, the gross elements are manifested. So we discussed on the principles of the knowledge acquiring senses and how the 5 primarily elements they manifest. Now going further how there is transformation. So this is a continued chain of transformation, and from the mode of goodness. Okay, we'll recite the verse. This is the 30th verse. वैकारिकान् मनोजज्ञे वैकारिका मनोजज्ञे देवा वैकारिका दश दिग्वतर्क प्रचेतस्वी वहानीन्द्रियोपेन्द्र मित्र का. So Vaikarika normally is called the transformation, but here it is the transformation which is coming from where? First, from the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness, it comes in transformation, or it gets in influence with the false ego. When the false ego interacts the ahankar, which interacts with the mode of goodness, then what is generated? From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest. And also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movement. So mainly the demigods are in which mode? Demigods are in which mode?
Mode of goodness, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so how they are in mode of goodness here? Because they are manifested from the ahankar. When it interacts with the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and the demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of the directions. So how many of demigods are there who control how many directions are there? As per Vedic knowledge, how many directions are there? You should be knowing this. So many times there is reference, there is. Yes, Ravindra Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Priyanka?
There are 10 directions.
Yes, very good. 10. So they are called Dikpal. Dikpals. The 10 directions, there are 10 controlling demigods. Okay, very good. Such demigods are known as the controller of the directions. Then further, controller of the air, the sun god, Varuna, the Ashwini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, that is Indra, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas and Brahmaji Prajapati, all come into existence. When you see how the sequences that first there is Kala, and from Kala, when the Kal manifest, the three modes manifest, and the three modes when they start interacting with Mahatattva. From Mahatattva comes the Ahankar. And the first interaction of the Ahankar, when it is in the mode of goodness, so all these presiding deities of, or the demigods who are the controllers, these devatas, they manifest and the mind manifest. Okay, so far clear? Let us see the purport. Vaikarika is the neutral stage of creation, and Tejas is the initiative of creation, while Tamas is the full display of material creation under the spell of darkness or ignorance. So Vaikarika is what? From the mode of goodness, so it is the neutral state. And Tejas is what? Which mode? Passion. Passion, what is there? Creation is there. And Tamas, the full display of material creation and the spell of darkness of ignorance. But this material world is full of Tamas. So there is full manifestation of material creation. Manufacturer of the necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali or in the age of the machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. So Prabhupada is hammering that the full manifestation of the mode of tamas or ignorance is factories and workshops. Prabhupada says it is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. Darkness is what? Ignorance. Such manufacturing enterprises by human society are in the mode of darkness. Same thing. Mode of darkness means mode of ignorance. Because factually, there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. Human society primarily requires foods for subsistence, shelter for sleeping, defense for protection, and commodities for satisfaction of the senses. The senses are the practical signs of life, as will be explained in the next verse. Human civilization is meant for purifying the senses, and objects of sense satisfaction should be supplied as much as absolutely required, but not for aggravating artificial sensory needs. Food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification are the needs in material existence. Otherwise, in its pure, uncontaminated state of original life, the living entity has no such needs. The needs are therefore artificial, and in the pure state of life, there are no such needs. Prabhupada is repeating it again. That there are no such needs. Where? When one comes to the platform of soul. So all these four things, food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification, is only at the level of body, bodily conception. As such, increasing the artificial need is the standard of material civilization, or advancing the economic development of human society is a sort of engagement in darkness without knowledge. By such engagement, human energy is spoiled. Because human energy is primarily meant for purifying the senses in order to engage them in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. So this is the purpose of human existence, is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the supreme processor of spiritual senses, is the master of the senses. Rishikesha. Rishika means the senses and Isha means the master. The Lord is not the servant of the senses. Or in other words, he is not directed by the dictation of the senses, but the conditioned souls or the individual living entities are servants of the senses. They are conducted by the directions or dictations of the senses, and therefore material civilization is a kind of engagement in sense gratification only. So Prabhupada proves it. How material civilization is sense gratification only. The standard of human civilization should be to cure the disease of sense gratification. And one can do this simply by becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The same thing. The purpose is to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord. Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagements, but one should purify them by engaging them in the pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses. This is the instructions of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted first of all to satisfy his own senses by his decisions not to fight with his kinsmen and friends. But Lord Shri Krishna taught him in Bhagavad Gita just to purify. Arjuna's decision for sense gratification, therefore, Arjuna agreed to satisfy the senses of the Lord. And thus he fought the battle of Kurukshetra as the Lord desired. The Vedas instruct us to get out of the existence of darkness and go forward on the path of light. Tamsima Jyotirgama. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Very beautiful. Sri Prabhupada's genius. What is tamas? Is to satisfy the senses of the self. And what is jyotir? Is to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of the senses, the yoga system. Or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord, the jnana system. The devotees, however, are above the yogis and the jnanis because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord only because of the darkness of ignorance. Do the yogis and jnanis deny the senses of the Lord and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses? In the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs. See, in the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs. So what we have to do? What is the application point? When one comes to see the disadvantage of aggravating the sense activities, one is called a jnani. And when one tries to stop the activities of the senses by the practice of yoga principles, he is called a yogi. But one, when is fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord and tries to satisfy his senses, that means his Lord's senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. The devotee of the Lord do not try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the actions of the senses. But they do voluntarily engage their purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Verse number 31. So what will be the next? Let us see Ahankar. And now this Ahankar, it will interact with the second mode, the Tejas of passion. Tejasattu vikurvana indriyani dasha bhavan jnana shakti kriya shakti buddhi prana tatejaso Shotram tva grahana drikjiva Vagdor medangrihi payava. By further transformation of the mode of passion, that is the false ego with the interaction with the mode of passion, the sense organs like the ears, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hand, genital, leg, and outlet. So these are all what? Working senses and knowledge senses. Ear is knowledge senses, nose is knowledge senses, eyes, tongue. These are all knowledge acquiring. And hands, genital, legs, outlet for evacuating, these are all working senses. Together with intelligence. This is more important thing. So when the false ego, the ahankar, interacts with the mode of passion, what comes out is the intelligence. That is why in the conditioned stage, everyone's intelligence is lusty. Why? Because it is coming out from the interaction of mode of passion. And where does calm generate? Where does the lust generate? When there is mode of passion. Intelligence and life energy are all generated. This is the second scenario. The living condition in material existence depend more or less on one's intelligence and powerful life energy. Intelligence to counteract the hard struggle for existence is assisted by the senses for acquiring knowledge. And the life energy is maintained by the manipulations of the active organs, like the hands and legs. But on the whole, the struggle for existence is an exertion of the mode of passion. Therefore, all the sense organs, along with the intelligence and the life energy prana, are different products and byproducts of the second mode of nature called passion. This mode of passion, however, is a product of the air element as described below. So, the third interaction with the mode of ignorance, tamas. यदा एते संगता भावा भूतेन्द्रिय मनोगुणा यदा आयतना निर्मने नाशेखुर्ब्रह्मा विक्तमा. O Narad, best of the transcendentalists, the formation of the body cannot take place as long as these created parts, namely the elements, senses, mind, and modes of nature, are not assembled. Okay. The different types of bodily constructions of the living entities are exactly like different types of motor cars manufactured by assembling the allied motor parts. When the car is ready, driver sits in the car and moves as it desired. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1861. The living entity is as if seated on the own machine of the body. And the car of the body is moving by the control of material nature. Just as the railway trains are moving under the direction of the controller. The living entities, however, are not the bodies. They are separate from the bodily cars. But the less intelligent material scientists cannot understand the process of assembling the parts of the body, namely the senses, the mind, and the qualities of the material forms. Every living entity is a spiritual spark, part and parcel of the Supreme Being. And by the kindness of the Lord, for the Father is kind to his sons. The individual living beings are given a little freedom to act according to their will to lord it over the material nature. Just as the father gives some playthings to the child to satisfy him. The whole material creation is made possible by the will of the Lord to allow the bewildered living entity to lord it over things as they desire. Although under the control of the agent of the Lord, the living entities are exactly like small children playing in the material field under the control of the Supreme Truth, under the control of the maid servants of Lord Nature. They accept Maya or the maid servant as all in all. One second. The living entities are exactly like small children playing in the material field under the control of the maid servants of the Lord Nature. They accept Maya or the maid servants as all in all, and thus worship and wrongly conceive the Supreme Truth to be feminine, Goddess Durga, etc. The foolish child-like materialist cannot reach beyond the conception of the maid servants. What is that? Maya, material nature. But the intelligent grown-up sons of the Lord knows well that all the act of material nature are controlled by the Lord, just as a maid servant is under the control of the mystery, is under the control of the masters, the father of the undeveloped victim. The parts of the body, such as the senses, are the creation of Mahatattva. And when they are assembled by the will of the Lord, the material body comes into existence, and the living entity is allowed to use it for further activities. This is explained as follows. Tada samyata cha anyonyam bhagavad shakti chodita shat astatvam upadaya chavayam sasrujor hiyada. Thus, when all these become assembled by the source of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly comes into being by accepting both the goddess Thus, when all these become assembled by the force of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly comes into being by accepting both the primary and secondary cause of creation. In this verse, it is clearly mentioned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead exerts his different energies in the creation. It is not that he himself is transformed into material creation. He expands himself and his different energies, as will be explained He expands himself into his different energies as well as by his plenary portions in a manner in a corner of a spiritual sky. Brahma Jyoti or spiritual cloud sometimes appears, and the covered portion is called the Mahatattva. See the analogy. In the corner of the spiritual sky, Brahma Jyoti, a spiritual cloud sometimes, and the covered portion is called the Mahatattva. The Lord then by his plenary portion as Mahavishnu lies down within the water of the Mahatattva, and the water is full. Sorry. And the water is called the causal ocean, Karanjala. While Mahavishnu sleeps within the causal ocean, innumerable universes are generated along with his breathing. These universes are floating and they are scattered all over the causal ocean. They stay only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu in each and every universal globe. The same Mahavishnu enters again as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu and lies there on the serpent-like Sesh incarnation. From his navel sprouts a lotus stem, and on the lotus, Brahma, the Lord of the universe, is born. Within the universe, Brahma creates all forms of living beings in different shapes, in terms of different desires. He also creates the sun god, the moon god, and other demigods. Therefore, the chief engine of the material creation is the Lord himself, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.10. It is he only who is It is he only who directs the material nature to produce all sorts of moving and non-moving creations. There are two modes of material creation: the creation of the collective universe, as stated above, done by Mahavishnu, and the creation of the single universe. Both are done by the Lord, and thus the universal shape, as we can see, takes place. Hare Krishna. So I'll stop here. Today, basically, we discussed that how when the Mahatattva, the false ego, it interacts with the mind. Sorry, interacts with the mind of goodness, and the mind and the presiding deities manifest. And when it interacts with the mode of passion, then mind generates. And the various senses working and knowledge acquiring. Hare Krishna. If you have any question, please ask. Just bear me till Janmashtami. It will be very tough for me to take classes, but still I will try. I will try as far as possible to continue in our study of Bhagavatam. If you have any question, please ask. No one? Then we will close for today and we will continue tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glory.